Mr. Begley, members of the board, we do have 4 items for board discussion this evening. Our first item is our book study. This evening we are scheduled to discuss pages 1 through 56 of the book Row the Boat by John Gordon and P.J. Fleck. Turn it over to Mr. Begley.
Great. Thank you. Yes, Row the Boat, first 6 chapters. We have often talked about prompts I read, I noticed, I wondered, or any other insightful words of wisdom you'd like to share. I don't want to steal your thunder, Mr. Napier, if you'd like to lead us out.
I'll try. It's actually a very interesting book for me. You want to read these? I can't read them.
Yeah, sure.
I can read them, but you won't understand me.
Right. So we're here in the first chapter. You've highlighted. I was taught that there is so much more good in a person than there is bad. So find the good, bring it out, give others the benefit of the doubt, judge those on how they treat you, and stand up for others who don't stand up for themselves. Yeah. Very well put. This is an interesting read. It's John Gordon, who we've actually read one of his other books before, and he's kind of writing this for P.J. Fleck, and P.J. Fleck, of course, is the current coach of the Minnesota Gophers, and this is sort of his life story, and we're gleaming from it the things that made him special as first a way undersized athlete and student, and then as a coach at a number of different levels. So really some neat stuff here.
On page 48, I'm going to that middle paragraph, jump around to a couple quotes on there. But it's talking about the bamboo tree, and it says, grow higher. In order to achieve what we want to accomplish, we knew we couldn't stop growing. And then a couple of lines later, it says, in 2 or 3 years, the root system has formed, and then in 1 year, the tree can spring up to 90 feet. Speaking of that, we literally have talked about that multiple times today, talking about the pre-apprenticeship program. It started off with 1 or 2 or a couple programs, and we're just now getting the roots, and it's going to grow so much more. I mean, it's still growing and continues growing, and we're only halfway through the school year, and we're already looking at stuff for next semester. And so I just think that it's truly important to recognize that not everything has to start off with a bang. You get your roots in, you start off, and then it's going to just excel from there and just shoot up with a good foundation. Speaking of foundations, not to keep talking, I absolutely love the reference of building on page, building a house. On page 37, I compare building a program to building a house. In year 1, you can dig deep down to the plot of the land you have been granted. Speaking of using the resources you have, you kind of have to dig into that spot and build from there. And I think that's just super powerful to recognize that you have to kind of use what you have and dig deep sometimes.
From the beginning about his king of the twos, too small, too short, too slow, too young, too inexperienced, the king of the twos. And then the next page on 4, he talks about talent and how that's a big part of success. It's more than just, talent's more than a physical ability and stature. He discovered talent is how you have heart, spirit, creativity, the will, the effort, passion, the ability to be a great teammate. All that goes into success. So it's not just one thing, but it is accumulative to all that. And for a guy that was so many twos, he has done a great job in his career for never quitting. And then I like the boxing glove story where they had one set of boxing gloves, and they shared, and the big kid's got the right hand, and he was right-handed. They gave him the left hand, and he was all the time getting beat up, but he kept going. And as he got older, he realized that people weren't cheering because he was getting his butt kicked, as he said, but it was because he had that will, that passion, that drive to just keep going, and he's been very successful, and it shows. So that's pretty cool.
Mr. Napier also highlighted another section here that kind of speaks to the whole mantra of row your boat, right? So row your boat is a never give up mantra, an approach to life and work that anyone can adapt and implement. It's a standard that says your life will not be defined by circumstances or events. When adversity hits, and I guarantee it will, you will not allow a situation or a person to discourage you or affect the way you live. Rather, with enthusiasm, inspiration, optimism, you will create your way of life. Row the boat is about being proactive, not reactive or perfect. Regardless of what happens, you have already decided that you are going to move forward in a positive way.
I had the second half of that page highlighted. It's kind of goes with his, the beginning about the so many twos and his drive. Tough times, you row. Success, you row. Uncertainty, you row. In struggles, you row. Stormy weather, you row. Rocking the boat, you row. So you don't give up. And again, he's pretty much showing that through this whole book. And I didn't get finished, but that shows his drive, right? To get him where he is, playing the D1 football league. And that was a good story too. He said, Brandon and that warrior freak number 10, you guys go over there and tear down and pick up. So they didn't know his name, but they knew his passion and his drive, and it showed. Yeah. That was a quote from the book, the freaking thing.
You're right.
Yeah, the whole row your boat mantra, I figured I could use that as a more sophisticated way of what I tell myself now, which is just keep swimming.
Yes.
Just keep swimming. So now I can just say row your boat, and I won't sound like the Disney nerd that I am. But I really appreciated on page 44 where he was talking about they were in the middle of an intense game, and he wanted to have a really inspirational locker room speech at halftime, and he ended up just walking into the locker room and proclaimed, "When you are tired of being average, you're not," and then walked out. And it's that spoke to me. I feel like, how many times do we all just kind of need a little kick in the rear end, something simple that makes you go, "Oh yeah, I can do this. It's hard, but I can do it." And then it's something simple like that turned their game around, and they ended up going out and winning. Another thing that spoke to me is when he talked about losing his son shortly after birth. That was so hard to read, and I've mentioned before that there are 2 kids in my family that were born congenital heart warriors. They're both still with us, both thriving, thank God. But that really spoke to me, how he talked about that, and it kind of, as successful as he is, it really shows you that everybody is fighting some sort of battle you don't know about. Mm-hmm. And that theme sort of carried on with me when he talked about the history of the golf ball and how he presented that to his players when he was saying the first golf balls were smooth all the way around, but they took on small dents when golfers hit them hard. At the time, the dents were considered a bad thing. However, as golfers learned that the ball traveled farther with more dimples, it changed people's perspectives. As the design evolved, golf balls were given more and more dimples. Nowadays, golf balls have anywhere from 300 to 500 dimples. And it's like, well, yeah, we all take our dimples in life and hopefully get better and learn and move on. So, yeah, that theme stuck with me. Just keep rowing.
One of the overarching messages throughout this book is talking about sacrifice and serving others. And as elected officials, we do a lot of that. We sacrifice time with our family so that we can serve our community and do stuff like that. And on page 33, it says we don't have to let our energy wane and then give up. We can always sacrifice and do more for others and ourselves. We can all learn from our past and move forward to create our future. And he makes another reference to that sacrificing in the last chapter that we've read, which is on page 55, talking about the boat and how to grow your boat. The more you serve others, the bigger your boat gets and the larger your team becomes. Your impact expands and more people decide to row with you. It doesn't happen overnight, but as your boat and your impact grows, your life becomes more rewarding. And I feel that all the time as I go to these school functions and go into the schools and see the everyday impact these students are having on stuff that, we discuss here but don't see every day, anyways, soapbox. It's very rewarding to see the impact that we're making in the schools just by giving that servitude to the community, by our students benefiting from the great programs that, we help steer towards.
I guess what I would add was, we were talking about his warrior attitude, his never give up approach, and yet he talked about almost giving up.
Yep.
When he was at Western Michigan, and they started out poorly and continued to lose, and the vultures were circling, and he was having personal struggles, and he almost gave up, and so he credits his wife, right? And I think it does take more than just hearing your own voice, right? And how important that is.
I'll take off on that because his new wife Heather, because he was ready to quit and give up, and he was criticized for the row the boat, and didn't think he could handle the criticism anymore. And he says Heather changed everything. She would not allow me to give up on row the boat. She made me realize that the platform I had was given to me by God and meant to be used to bring more good into the world than just winning football. She taught me that the hard part was about being the standard, is that you are the standard, not just sometimes. So, again, somebody else coming alongside of you, helping you row. Sometimes we need people to come along and help us row. And encouragement.
Yeah, well put. Is there anything else let me share? Sure, right here. This is at the bottom of page 31 and the end of chapter 4. Learn from your past, row in the present, and prepare for whatever comes your way. The most important thing is to keep on rowing, right? So, it's again that never give up attitude, right? And this is going to be a fun read the rest of the way through, I think. It's an interesting story, and it's an easy read, right? It's an entertaining read.
It's a simple concept. I mean, you just keep going, but life can make it hard to do that.
No, that's right. Anything else? Okay,
Mr.
we'll
Smith's
move
got some-
along. Thank you.
You want me to share one?
Well,
You got
please.
a couple papers down there.
I'll just share one. You talked about several sayings on page 5. It says, find a way was the lesson, even on the days when you don't feel like it. Go make it work with the other kids on the block who just humiliated you. But we often talk about, that's what we do here, is we find a way. We find a way for kids. For kids who come to school every day with barriers. And every student is unique in his or her own way. And there are a lot of barriers, and it can be challenging and frustrating and exhausting, but we keep rowing, and our staff finds a way for every kid. That's what we do. So I really like that.
Very applicable.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Our next item for discussion, organizational meeting in January. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Phillips.
Yes, I just wanted to confirm with everybody on the board who will be returning that Thursday, January 8th will work for you for our organizational business meeting. We have to have that within the first 15 days of January. Just wanted to confirm that works with Abby and Scott and Mike and Kevin in the back.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Mike, you
Yes.
good? Kevin? I'm just going to say yes. All right. I'm going to say no. Okay. So that'll be Thursday, January 8th. 6:30. 6:30.
Yeah.
6, 7. Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, up next, resolution on administrator contracts. This time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Sauer and actually keep it with her. She'll be talking about some board policies after that item.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Begley, members of the board, my first item for discussion this evening is a resolution on administrator contracts. This resolution is in response to a possible state law that would impact administrative compensation, and it's recommended to ensure our compensation remains lawful should the law take effect. So pending any questions or concerns that you may have, the board will be asked to take action on this resolution this evening. Any questions before I move on to my next item? My next item's pretty lengthy, so.
Yes, please.
Yes, letters A through P, board policy. So my second item for discussion is policy revisions due to House Bill 96. So fair warning, as I just said, we will be policy heavy tonight and at our next board meeting to ensure our policies are up to date and compliant with all things that the budget bill impacts. The policy revisions in your packet match the revisions that I shared with you via email for you to review in advance. Letter A, Policy BF, Board Policy Development, is updated to reflect being able to approve a policy revision at the first meeting discussed due to the increase of legislative changes with immediate effective dates. It also adds ability for editorial revisions without board approval. Letter B, Policy EHC, Cybersecurity, is a new policy to reflect new revised code requiring districts to establish a cybersecurity program that meets state law requirements. Mr. McKinney and the Tech Department are actively working to ensure implementation of these requirements will be ready for compliance checks that we are told will begin July 1, 2026. Letter C, Policy JFCK, Use of Electronic Communications Equipment by Students, also known as our cell phone policy, is updated to reflect changes in revised code prohibiting student cell phone use during the instructional day unless otherwise specified by law. Basically, just more clear and concise language that aligns with the current practices that we implemented at the start of this school year. Letter D, Policy EBC, Emergency Management and Safety Plans, updated to reflect changes to law addressing the use of student cellular devices during an active threat or emergency, basically allowing students to be able to use cell phones as appropriate to communicate during an active threat or emergency. Letter E, Policy DBD, Budget Planning. It's updated to reflect new deadlines which replace the 5-year forecast with current budget info and 3-year projections being submitted to ODU by August 31st and the last day of February. So saying goodbye to the 5-year forecast and it going every 3 years, projections out instead. Letter F, Policy DE, Revenues from Tax Sources, and Letter G, Policy FD, Tax Issues. Both are updated to reflect legal procedural requirements for levy requests, which Mr. Phillips is becoming an expert on as we make our way to learning about that. Letter H, Policy IND, School Ceremonies and Observances, Patriotic Exercises, updated to clarify requirements for recognition of Constitution Day, which again, we as a district already do. We do recognize Constitution Day and teach our children about that. Letter I, Policy EHA, District Records Commission, Records Retention and Disposal, updated to reflect the amended revised code definition of record. And letter J, Policy KBA, Public's Right to Know, is updated to just clearly indicate public record where applicable. Almost there. Letter K, Policy GCI, Professional Staff Assignments and Transfers, updated to reflect revised code requiring superintendents to assign teachers to positions based on the best interests of students, not based solely on seniority or continuing contract status. This is something that we already do, but we will be reviewing FCTA contract language regarding transfers that occur possibly due to a reduction in force. So I will be working with FCTA regarding this new law and any possible contract language implications that come from that. Letter L, Policy JECBB, Inter-District Open Enrollment, is updated to reflect Senate Bill 208 changes, removing open enrollment application deadlines if the student's parent is an active duty member of the armed forces stationed in Ohio. Letter M, Policy IGBEA and IGBEA-R, Reading Skills Assessments and Intervention, is updated to reflect changes in law to ODU assessment options, exemption status, and requirements for high dosage tutoring. And these are all things that Mrs. Ogg and her department have become experts on to ensure that we're in compliance with those things. Letter N, policy IKA, grading systems updated to include language indicating compliance with law for development of grading scales relating to the changes from House Bill 96. And letter O, policy IKF, graduation requirements, updated to reflect a provision permitting boards to excuse a student from the financial literacy graduation requirement if the student, while in high school, participates in a financial literacy program offered through a student branch of a credit union or by a bank. That program would need to meet the same standards and expectations of what we offer here in our schools. And last, letter P, policy IGBAA, special education model policies and procedures. There are absolutely no changes to this policy from the last board adoption, but there is a new mandate that there's an annual verification of board approval of that by November 30th each year. So that's why I bring that to you for approval at our next meeting. So pending any questions or concerns that you may have, the board will be asked to approve these changes at our next board meeting on November 20th.
I just had one question, Mrs. Howard, back to E, which is DBD, budget planning, and the shift from a 5-year forecast to a 3-year forecast. Now, that's what the state is recommending.
Correct.
Or requiring, I guess.
Correct.
So, in these times of financial uncertainty, why are we shortening the forecast?
It's a good question, and I will pass the mic here to our treasurer, Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, what they'll say is it's a 4-year forecast because it's the current year plus 3. So it's really a 4-year forecast, but if you want my honest opinion of why we're shortening, not only are we shortening the forecast, but we're requiring the initial forecast to be done earlier, okay? So it used to be November, now it'll be October, which means it has to be approved and delivered in September. But the real reason, I think, is because, you know, school districts, you can look at ours. You look at our reserve fund right now, you know, you're sitting around $40 million. But when you start deficit spending, and our budget's over $120 million, but when you start deficit spending, that cash balance is eaten away very quickly. Okay, so you get to years 3, 4, 5 of the forecast, you see that the school district is out of money. However, if you shorten that forecast up, it looks like a school district is more secure than what they really are. So then the argument can be, well, why are you coming and talking to us about more money now? You have $40 million in the bank, then 30, then 20, but they don't see years 4 or year 5 when you're out of money. And so also, they're scooting it up. They're moving the initial up because your current year's expenditure, so all the new pays for teachers and administrators, you know, if there's a raise going into, for example, into this school year, into the 25-26 school year, that doesn't really hit our books until September, October. So if the forecast has to be in, I think it's actually August 31st, you're not going to see that reflected in the forecast. The actual numbers reflected. You'll see the forecasted numbers, but you don't see the actual numbers. So I think there is a method to the madness. I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but I believe it's because they want school districts to look better in the eyes of those that are looking at the forecast than not. So that's the real answer, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great explanation, and I would agree with that. It's unfortunate, but that seems to be, you know, sort of facts are facts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it coincides with everything we've been seeing coming out of the State House over the last couple of years.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Good
Ms.
question.
Sauer.